The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. If Mickey will allow me, I will plunge right in because we have an awful lot of ground to cover today. And the sooner I start, the better. Lourdes Green says, after betraying his entire family for money and Meghan's accusations, it's the royal family that needs protection from Harry and Meghan, especially King Charles, William, Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis. I'm starting with that because actually that pretty much hits the nail on the head. I'm going to interweave and dish some what Americans call dirt, starting with the fact that the relationship between Harry and his father is becoming as irretrievable as that between Harry and his brother because of Harry and Meghan's determination to avail themselves of the substance that they used to fill the 16 bathrooms at Montecito on a regular basis while dumping from a great height on his father and his brother. Don't for a second think that the timing of Meghan's Lemonada podcast, sorry, I've got a little bit of a problem with my throat at the moment. It's nothing to concern yourself with. The Lemonada podcast was timed to coincide with the King and Queen's state visit to Italy. Charming, no? So that Meghan would be able, and Harry would be able to capitalize upon their links with the British monarchy. So there is a protocol that when a royal is doing something super important, that nobody steps on their toes, nobody steals their thunder. Harry and Meghan have systematically stolen the thunder of his royal relations by stepping on their publicity. They did it when there was the visit to Pakistan some years ago. They have done it repeatedly. This is a pattern that I can tell you goes down like a lead balloon at Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace. It's damaging to the attention that the monarchy feels it needs to be taken seriously. Harry's lawsuit hearing did not coincide totally with all of this. That's more happenstance. But make no mistake about it, the Lemonada scheduling was done to coincide with the visit, so that their thinking, which has foundation, is that whenever there's a royal visit or any of the other royals will be doing something, that if they capitalize upon it by cashing in on their publicity and stealing some of it, it reinforces their importance at the very time that it reinforces in the public mind their links to the royal family. It's a really nasty way of behaving, but Meghan knows how to behave very nastily. For instance, she does mean girl things like, for instance, what she did with Catherine and the lipstick. Meghan calculates how to knock people off their stride. Not a good look. Okay, so let me see how I should really answer this. My understanding is that Harry has made it absolutely clear that he intends to spit in the king's face and in Camilla's. He evidently is filled with resentment because when he was given the 12 minutes that he was given when he last saw his father, Camilla was in the room to make sure that Harry didn't upset his father needlessly, because he is evidently, according to what I'm told, very abusive verbally and makes unreasonable demands and hurls accusations which are totally unfounded. And if you imagine what he has done publicly, and he's being decorous, can you imagine? And that's been pretty bad, as everybody has realized. Can you imagine how much worse it is in private? If you think William and Catherine last week with the children were in Courchevel skiing, they were perfectly able to go about it without any problems whatsoever. No big fuss. They were able to ski and have their space respected. Harry, Meghan. Then, of course, there's the lawsuit that because Harry came over for the appeal hearing. Now, it's virtually unheard of, I have to tell you, for a litigant to show up to an appeal hearing. Harry did it for the publicity. Harry did it so that he would be knocking his father and stepmother off the front pages of the newspaper and minimizing the attention that they should be getting on their Italian visit. Mean and nasty. He also did it for the publicity for Meghan, because Meghan wants every royal link to be ratified, notwithstanding the fact that it's going to be negative and abusive. It needs to be ratified. I mean, really mean and nasty games they play. She could have scheduled the Lemonade podcast for a different time. He should not have come over. He didn't need to come over. His lawyer made the point that he had come over to show the court how important this is to him. I don't know who he thinks he's fooling. I hope he's not fooling the court, because the Master of the Rolls is not exactly an idiot, nor are the other two Lords of Appeal. But maybe they don't know the way the royal system works completely, and they might actually think that he was doing this to show them something. In fact, he was using this to make a point. Now, what is really interesting as well is that his supposed, one of his gang, the band of brothers, Lord Vivian, who got married. And Harry was asked to the wedding, and Harry refused to go to the wedding, saying that he didn't feel safe. He couldn't go to the wedding because he doesn't have the level of security that he requires. Now, that is rubbish, and I would hope that the 3 judges on the Court of Appeal, if they have been reading newspapers, will realise it's rubbish. And I'm going to tell you why it's rubbish. Harry, if he gives notice, gets a full level of security. Weddings are not organised within a day or 2. He gives 28 days notice. He gets full security. He was met at the airport by the Metropolitan Police, and he's been escorted by them. So it's a total lie. It is a total bare-faced act of dishonesty to say that he couldn't attend Lord Vivian's marriage because of security. It may play well with the public, but hopefully it's not playing well with the judiciary. And it doesn't play well with the public either. It only plays well with his supporters. And of course, there was one in court, a 50-year-old black woman who disrupted proceedings. Was she a plant? Was she a plant? Or was she somebody who was encouraged to show how vulnerable Harry is? Well, I can tell you, that may play well with the public who are Harry supporters, and it may play well with the innocent readers of newspapers who don't know the reality. But I'm here to tell you, having been to the High Courts of Justice in the Strand on many an occasion, every single person who enters that court, it's a massive complex. So it's not really just a courthouse. It's many different courts and but it's huge. But everybody who enters, first of all, they examine, and that includes the barristers. That includes everybody who enters. Everybody. And every time you enter, you go out for 2 minutes, you have to go through security when you come back. So people in the legal profession who smoke and go outside to smoke, they have to go through security again. And it's a 2-step process. All your bags, briefcases are examined, and you are then put through a scanner. So the public may think, and Harry is so dumb, he may think that he's impressing the court with the danger to him that this black woman who said, "I support Harry," Prince Harry, she said, that her presence is a threat to Harry's safety. Not a chance. Nobody is a threat to anybody in the High Courts of Justice. I make that point for what it's worth. His barrister, who is, she's the first person in this country who was given permission to appear in court. Her name is Shahid Fatima, and she's a King's Counsel. And she was the first person given permission to appear in a headscarf and however you want to describe it. So whether it's the Muslim thing, instead of a wig, she wears a headscarf. Big concession to her. Well, she was made an inflammatory set of speeches. She started out by saying that Harry was being treated in an inferior way, that he was being effectively taken advantage of, because he should be allowed to live wherever he wants and still have full security, because he's the king's son and because he was the queen's grandson, notwithstanding the fact, of course, that neither Prince Edward nor Princess Anne has the level of security Harry is demanding for himself, notwithstanding the fact that they are working royals living in Britain. He wants it wherever he is. And the judges have made it clear so far that this is not going to fly. Sir Geoffrey Voss, who was the senior judge, he's the master of the rolls, and he's the head of the civil justice in England and Wales, said that it's unlikely that he and Lord Justice Bean and Lord Justice Edis would be rendering a judgment before Easter. He said plainly, we will take our time to consider our judgments. A part of Harry's case has been that the powers that be didn't have the authority to strip him of his full-time police security without consulting the Risk Management Board Quango. Well, Sir James Eady, KC, who's representing the Home Office, which Harry is actually taking to court, said, RMB risk analysis is the usual approach in usual cases, but there is nothing about the appellant's, that is Prince Harry's, announcement in January 2020 that he was to step back from his role in the royal family and spend most of the time abroad. That was usual. Harry wants it both ways. And Harry, of course, has his lawyer who is quite determined to play the victim card at every turn for Harry and ignore the realities of the situation. Because, of course, what the judges will know, as you and I do, is that Harry and Meghan sprang the whole thing on the royal family, including the late Queen. They announced what they were going to do without any agreement from anybody, trying to do a preemptive strike to bounce the Queen and the royal system into buckling to their demands. Shahid Fatima was very emotional at the end. She said, Valens to the rescue. One must not forget the human dimension to this case. There is a person sitting behind me whose safety, whose security, and whose life is at stake. Then she continued, there is a person sitting behind me who is being told he is getting a special bespoke process when he knows and has experienced a process that is manifestly inferior in every respect. His presence here and throughout this appeal is a potent illustrating where one needed of how much this appeal means to him and his family. Well, I'm going to make a point or two. Harry made no attempt to see his father, knowing that if he tried to see his father, he would not be received. Not only am I advised that his father and stepmother are very wary of having any interaction whatsoever with him, but his father would not have been able to see him prior to his appearance in court because he is suing his father's judiciary. His father couldn't receive him. But as with everything to do with Harry and Meghan, it's all about them. It's all about their needs. It's all about their desires presented as needs. And they, quite frankly, are, in my opinion, a mighty, mighty pain. Now, I have been told that there is concern within certain elements of the judiciary that Sir Keir Starmer, who was the Director of Public Prosecutions and has some influence in the judiciary to this day, but I don't think he has any where the Court of Appeal is concerned, but time will tell. There is the fear that he, for political reasons, is going to try to use his behind-the-scenes influence to get Harry's security restored in part, if not in toto. I actually have great reservations about accepting that line of reasoning, because the judiciary at that level should be coming to decisions based upon the law. And Harry has already been told by the judges that his case is without merit. So for them to do a volte-face would be deeply suspicious. And if it happens, I think we need look no further than Sir Keir Starmer, who is not a monarchist. Let's make that point. And will have no doubt that restoring Harry's security would be deeply unpopular, especially in these times of austerity and hardship. C. May says, Harry's victim card has expired due to overuse. I had to read that out. I thought it's so funny. Joyce Woody says, hope you saw Meghan's podcast. Another copy. This time it's another royal. Please check it out and address it when you can. I listened to the first one. I'm sorry. I don't think I can face listening to any more. When I subjected myself to the torment, to be more accurate, of looking at her as ever, no, it's with love, Meghan. I ended up with an allergic reaction. I started to listen to it. It's so dull, so boring. Nothing but what the Irish Times reviewer called a mutual loving of a millionaire and a duchess who want credit for daring to love themselves. It was so dreadful that I actually had to be reading the newspaper while cocking an ear and listening to this utter claptrap. Have you noticed Meghan never interviews people unless they are friends or associates who she's bought. And I found really interesting about her relationship with this woman is that this woman was brought to Harry and Meghan's house on New Year's Eve by another couple. Now, I'm going to tell you what that tells me, because I am a very experienced in terms of being a hostess and a guest. That tells, and also the way they were dressed. It was Meghan and Harry scraped the bottom of the barrel trying to get people to show up for anything they do. And absolutely thrilled to say yes to interlopers. That's what that told me. Anyway, this woman, and I'm not even going to bother to mention her name. She sounds perfectly pleasant, and she's evidently been very successful. She's created a dating website. So to an extent, that excused them talking about men and girly stuff and the terrible time they had the terrible time that she had with a series of toxic relationships, which of course Meghan has had as well. Because remember, Meghan was divorced. Meghan lived with Corey Vitiello. Meghan has had a host of men in whom she had an interest and who had an interest in her. Big interest in her very often, I gather. Well, it really was a bore because you never learned anything about creating a business. You learned about that everybody who is on Meghan's podcasts has to praise Meghan, and Meghan does the, I'm a 15-year-old enthusiast, batting 50. Well, Confessions of a Female Flounder. The Times columnist James Marriott said he was seized by an urge to beat my head against the wall. I identify with that. It never made the top 5 anywhere. That's a damning indictment. It was number 11th in the Apple Podcast charts in the United Kingdom. And it was number 57 in Australia. I mean, then of course, Meghan took the opportunity to chat rubbish, but let me put it this way. I think everybody might have heard that she said to her, the Bumble girl, who said that she'd had postpartum pre-eclampsia. And Meghan said, yes, so have I. She said, when I was pregnant, my tongue slipped. She said, when I was pregnant, she didn't say with which of the 2 children who were delivered. Was it by the stork or was it by FedEx? Well, it certainly wasn't by any doctor who signed off on it that we know anything about, because remember, the birth announcements have never had a medical signature to them. But she's very aware of the fact that there are rumblings all over the world about her megnancies and the performance of her baby bumps, grotesque performances, unnatural performances, are dubious performances. And she is also aware of the fact that there have been reports in the United States of America that the palace has been a source of information. I'm careful how I'm putting this. A source of information about what has been developing behind the scenes. And let's remember that it was Archie doing a deep dive at Birkenhead between her knees on the 14th of January 2019 that started the whole ball a-rolling in terms of the press and etc., etc. Let's remember what started it. And she is clearly very aware of the fact that she needs to, and they've done other things which have been as convincing as her claim to having suffered from postpartum pre-eclampsia. In the Netflix show, they published a scan of Archie without any identifying features that are normally on a scan. Well, the latest thing to silence everybody and for people to think, oh, actually, all that talk is misguided. Meghan was really pregnant. She said she had postpartum pre-eclampsia. She doesn't say which baby it was with. It cannot have been with Archie because of the revelations made about Archie's birth. And there is significant doubt, which I will not go into at this point, that it could have ever been possible that it had anything to do with Lily's birth as a result of what is known about Lily's birth. So I make those points for what they're worth. Meghan is trying to divert attention away from people's obvious and intelligent conclusions. So, the Queen's Guard says, "Hi, Lady C. I hope you and your family are doing well. Thank you, we are. On the birth certificate for Betty that has been put out into the public, the state code is not for California. I have a California birth certificate that has the correct state code. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any information? I think this is a huge fraud on the public and it's disgraceful, disgusting, and completely unstable actions." I'm going to refer you to Dan Wooten Outspoken in a recent interview he had with P. Diner. Now, I know P. Diner. P. Diner has been to balls here. She's been on this show. I've been on hers. Obviously, I know Dan. And P. Diner has made the same point, that birth certificate does not have California identifying features. What does that tell you? Well, it's got to tell you that Meghan was suffering from postpartum pre-eclampsia. Oh, and incidentally, not only am I still suffering from postpartum pre-eclampsia as a result of Dima and Misha having been born 32 years ago. And don't ask me how I came by postpartum pre-eclampsia, because I don't want to give away Meghannian secrets. But also, I'm going to be suffering from prenatal pre-eclampsia. Now that I'm pregnant with, I forget what I'm pregnant with, but it's certainly a wealth of possibilities, each of which is as implausible as the last one. Valdak says, I've just read about her unbelievable claim of having postpartum pre-eclampsia. If she did have this extremely rare condition, it would be highly likely she had high blood pressure during her pregnancy and would have been closely monitored after delivery. Yet, according to Harry in his trashy book, she was allowed home after an hour, despite the fact that she would have been unable to walk after an epidural. Sorry, but this toxic Z-lister was never pregnant. Is this her attempt to have a life-threatening condition to rival Catherine's cancer? Much love to you, the fur babies and the kitties. Thank you. Woof, woof, meow. Meghan has been trying to prove to the world that she was pregnant. Because let's remember, Meghan was pregnant. Not pregnant, pregnant. Between her pregnancies, sorry, my tongue does keep on tripping me up. I don't know why. Do you think you could tell me why? Anyway, between the pregnancies with Archie and Lili, remember, she lost the baby, the one that she conveniently lost when she was going to have to speak the truth to the courts in England. And Mr. Justice Warby gave her the benefit of the doubt, even though he knew she was lying and actually effectively called her a liar in his judgment. And Harry, like an animal, according to them, having been given the lost baby, which they cannot have been given because it's against the law in California. So that has to be a lie. They were given it and he scratched in the earth like a wild animal. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And buried the fetus. Scratch, scratch, scratch. And covered it. It was under the banyan tree. Did Harry ever see Elizabeth Taylor in Little Women? I just asked that question for what it's worth. But let's remember, she hasn't specified which baby she had postpartum pre-eclampsia for, or shall we say with? Just as how I am suffering from postpartum pre-eclampsia. And I've been suffering from it for the last 32 years in sympathy with the two women who carried my sons for me. And do you see how compassionate I am? Just like Maxie baby. I'm reducing myself to tears. I'm so wonderful. And I have been suffering for 32 years with postpartum pre-eclampsia. Also, post-traumatic stress. Gosh, can you imagine the stress of having to contend with a belly that wobbled and just expanded and then contracted like the truth or a lie? Anyway, we will end with these two unrelated matters. R.J. Andrade says, thank you for your show today, especially for exposing the mistreatment of Jean-Paul Guerlain and the threat of poisoning Christina Krag Michelson's horses. Delighted to have done it. I think it's absolute outrageous what Stephane Guerlain said, and the way he said it showed that he is absolutely confident in his ability to do anything he wants and get away with it. But I will come on to what user JK etc. says. What Stephane Guerlain is doing is criminal. Why is he not charged with abuse? Good question. I would suggest you get in touch with the French consul, the French ambassador, and make those questions answerable by them. Bod Essebod S says these names. Bernard Arnault and his son-in-law Xavier Niel, they're actually not father-in-law and son-in-law. Xavier Niel lives with Bernard Arnault's daughter. They're actually not married, but I suppose you could say informal son-in-law. Another billionaire, who also own umpteen media outlets and were strongly instrumental in promoting Emmanuel Macron in those media so that he would be elected president. Madame Macron only wears Louis Vuitton for her public appearances. They are all very close, which is another explanation as to why it is important that you contact French consuls everywhere and French ambassadors. Make your voices heard. Or will anything come of it? Well, let me put it this way. People who are very politically aware and people who are ruthlessly financially astute always will know when to jump ship. In the meantime, silence will reign supreme. The media aren't going to touch it until we, the public, make a big enough stink. But also, you could consider reporting it to PETA, or PETA, which, however it's pronounced, PETA, the animal charity. In France, you can use Google Translate and send it. The more people that do, the better. And you can be from anywhere. You don't have to be French. PC Brightlight says, isn't threatening to kill another person's horse a criminal offence? It most certainly is a criminal offence. Report it to the French police. Report it to the Versailles police. But also report it to the French Parisian police. And report it to the head of the police in France. Report it, report it, report it. Use your pen. Make your voices heard. Rescue people who are entrapped by an abusive system that is tolerating matters that have been brought to their attention and ignoring what they should be doing. They should be responsive. They should at least be addressing our concerns. Make it possible for them to not ignore you. Rochelle Devlin says, Lady C, thank you for your interesting and informative videos. I commend you for continuing to highlight the allegation of possible financial and psychological abuse you are describing in relation to Monsieur Guerlain. Is there a process for reporting this to the French social services and ultimately to the police? Yes, there is. Just report it. Report it to the French authorities. Report it to the judiciary. Go onto the internet, Google what to do, and do it. If I tell everybody to do something and they all do the same thing, it's not as effective as if it bombards them from different directions. I just make that point for what it's worth. And PTMS says, Lady C, what do you make of Virginia Giuffre giving the finger to Daily Mail Australia and failing to attend her court hearing? I think her credibility is shot. What do you think? I hope it's shot. Virginia Giuffre was photographed with a man. I don't know if it's her latest lover. I really don't know who it is, and quite frankly, it's immaterial. She was photographed and she gave the finger to the reporter and the photographer. And she doesn't have one bit of evidence of bruising on face or bosom. And I am here to tell you that when you have been physically assaulted the way she would like to pretend she was, or physically injured to the point that you have black and blues the way she asserted she did, bruises don't heal in a few days. They take sometimes months to disappear totally. Virginia Giuffre, in my opinion, is a con woman. I think she is a liar. I think she is a fraud. I think she is a cheat. And all the evidence that I have had presented to me leads me to that conclusion. I do not believe a word out of her mouth. She is somebody who, she should be in prison with, she should not be out of prison. By her own account, she groomed girls. She should be in prison. But of course, she's not in prison because she served a useful purpose for David Boyce and ex-President Clinton and Hillary Clinton. And the purpose has been realized. Well, I've made the point time and again, I'm no great fan of Prince Andrews, but I know that when a liar gives evidence against you, and I also know, having been photographed with thousands of people who've come up to me and asked for a photograph and I've given it to them, you don't remember who you were photographed with. Why would you remember? You're not able to remember being photographed by endless people, which is fair dues. But you put your hand around them, they put their hand around you. It's perfectly innocent. There's nothing untoward about it. What's untoward about that photograph is, why is Virginia Giuffre on the coldest day of the year in summer clothes that she then wore in the south of France at Naomi Campbell's party? That's what's interesting. Why is she in summer clothes in the depth of winter in London on the coldest day of the year? Did she go to tramp looking like that? Sorry, I don't buy any of it. And I'm not saying that the photograph is a fake. I am saying there's something seriously amiss about everything. And I don't believe a word out of her mouth, any more than I believe a word out of Meghan Markle's mouth, or Blake Lively's mouth, or Amber Heard's mouth. I think they are a cabal of women who let womanhood down. That's my take on it. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much. Oh, I should say first, actually, Virginia Giuffre is supposed to have been treated at Joondalup Hospital for a pre-existing condition and was released. It had nothing to do with a car crash and nothing to do with any assault. What's the pre-existing condition? I have no idea. No idea at all. And am I going to clap? I'm going to clap because I can tell you, even though I don't know what the pre-existing condition was, I know she deserves a clap. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay, thank you so much. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.